4 divisions, 4 hosts, all battling it out for the Holy GrAHL of the American Hockey League, the Calder Cup. This is the Holy GrAHL Podcast with Andrew Rinaldi, Dina Weinheimer, Jeremy Paul, Michael Liu, and Zack Power.
Hello and welcome to episode 32 of Field Pass Hockey's AHL podcast, The Holy GrAHL. If you're looking for information on ancient relics, folklore, or Monty Python talk, you are in the wrong place, as you know by now, because here at The Holy GrAHL, we're all about the American Hockey League and the yearly race to their Holy GrAHL, the Calder Cup, and we are deep into that conversation this week. And before we get too far into this, we're going to go around the screen here. It's been a minute since I've had host duty, so I'm definitely making it easy on myself. We're going to throw it in alphabetical order, which is weird today because that means I'm first, and that never happens. So what's up, everyone? My name is Jeremy Paul. I cover beat for the Rochester Americans here on Field Pass Hockey. In my first full season, the Americans are giving me everything I want and more in my first season, and I will throw it over to somebody who didn't necessarily give them everything they wanted and more in their beat, and that is my good friend Michael.
Yeah. Again, that. So, like Jeremy alluded to, my name's Michael. I cover the Abbotsford Canucks for FPH Hockey. It's my first full season as well. Obviously, the Canucks didn't manage to get too far, and I've been just kind of sitting here watching the other teams have their fun. So that's been my AHL playoff experience. I'll toss it down to Zack.
All this talk about AHL playoff experience. Gosh, come on. Just a tease. I'm Zack Power. I'm the beat writer for the Toronto Marlies, if you can believe that. What a shame. But nonetheless, I'm in my third season here with Field Pass Hockey, and we got a great episode coming up.
What Zach won't tell you is that his beat might be out, but his AHL affiliate for his big league squad is still hanging on pretty strong, and they're hanging on pretty well too. We'll talk about that a little bit here a little later on in the show, but we'll start off just with some week in review stuff, as we always do. The first being that Rochester's Ben Holmstrom has been suspended 2 games as a consequence of his actions in Sunday's Game 1 at Laval. He's going to sit out Wednesday's Game 3. And it's for Holmstrom, man. It's his 10th lost game in the last month. Recently suspended after a game against Utica in which he used a homophobic slur. So this player is not a stranger to finding his way into trouble in the AHL. This time for a check to the head, got himself a game misconduct against Utica, and here we are.
That might be the last game. That might be his last game.
Yeah.
But I mean, at what point, right? And sorry to kind of go off here, but at what point? I mean, they've talked so much about an organization who's going to be racially just, and they're committed to Black Lives Matter, and then we get racial slurs. And then he comes back, and how many games did he play, Jeremy, before this happened? It wasn't a whole lot.
Yeah, no, he first slotted in the Utica series in Game 5. So he played Game 5 and Game 1 against Laval. So he had 2 playoff games under his belt. 2
playoff games. And he's already right here. That alone will tell you that he's a troublemaker, right? He was a healthy scratch for God knows how long. And then I get it. I get that you want to get your money's worth out of a player because you paid for him, right? You want to be able to use him, and trust me, when Holmstrom puts his mind to it, he's a talented player. Let's not forget that. But at what point, right? And it's almost as if they didn't learn their lesson the first time, and now look what you have.
Yeah, I mean, former captain of the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, right? I mean, like, this is a guy who's not nobody in the AHL, and that's, I think, the part that's the most frustrating is like this is somebody who has been deemed a leader in locker rooms before, and here we are, and this is the play that we're getting from Holmstrom, and to say it's frustrating is probably underselling the reality of it. Again, we're not talking about a homophobic slur today in terms of what's gotten him in trouble with the league, but we're talking about a player that obviously can't keep his cool, and a hit in a 6-1 game, right? Like, I mean, like, in a game that you're in garbage time, like against Laval, you know that you're going to hurt your team by doing it. It just makes no sense to me.
I mean, you talk about a player who's been around in the AHL as well. You'd expect that he has some sort of understanding of that, have some sort of situational awareness, and really take almost a leadership role, which is interesting to see that he hasn't. I mean, he's been basically a healthy scratch, suspended. I mean, I can't say I've watched too many Rochester games, so you probably know better than me, Jeremy, but just from the looks of it, your team's down 2-0 in the series. They look like they're on the ropes. If there was anybody that could possibly help with turning this around, it starts from the very top. It starts with the veteran guys, what sort of culture and just being a leader. And unfortunately here, you just don't really get that sense, and it's something that the Americans probably would have really needed, especially if they want to keep this going past Game 3.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason he gets slotted in Game 5 against Utica and he stays in the lineup, right? I think that exactly is to your point, Michael. Like, it's that veteran presence. It's the guy who's been there before on a team full of – I mean, Rochester, like a storied franchise, hadn't made it out of the first round since 2004. So I can't think of any other franchises that haven't made it out of the first round since 2004, but I'll digress. And so, you know, I can understand the desire to have him in the lineup, like you said, Michael, but man, it obviously didn't work out in this case.
And let's not forget this either. We're not in the dressing rooms either, and we don't know what goes on the team bus or whatnot. But if you're Rochester, on the outside looking in, you got to not only lead by example, but Holmstrom has to lead by example as well, right? He has to show that, hey, I've changed, right? This is not who I am, right? And he was given that second opportunity where some people weren't. Some people in his shoes were not given that second opportunity. So it's a stain on his reputation.
Without a doubt. And so from the Holmstrom story, we move on to a bit of sad news in the AHL. Former AHL play-by-play announcer Eric Lindquist has passed away suddenly on Tuesday. The former San Jose Barracuda play-by-play voice served as the Sharks AHL affiliate, or the voice of the Sharks AHL affiliate, for 9 seasons, 8 in Worcester, and then in the Barracuda inaugural season in 2015 and 16 before returning to Worcester. Obviously, our condolences to his family. We know how much play-by-play announcers matter to our teams and to our communities, and so sending a lot of love and condolences from the Holy GrAHL family.
And these play-by-play announcers, I got really close with a lot of them in Newfoundland as well. Brian Rogers always comes to mind because, you know, I was right next to him at many points. And of course, I did some studio hosting after that as well. These guys travel with the team. These guys are on the team bus. They're on the team plane kind of thing. And Worcester, you know, then they moved over to San Jose, and then he kind of came back and was with the Islanders affiliate in Worcester for the ECHL. And it's tough to kind of hear that sort of stuff because these guys, a lot of people don't realize they're so close with the players, right? It's beyond a first name basis in a lot of cases, right? And these guys are local to the area. And in some cases, they even take in players right into their homes for dinners and family gatherings and whatnot. And these hockey teams are a family, and it's unfortunate to hear this kind of news, and condolence to anybody who knew him and to his family as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. And kind of then transitioning back to some more off-season moves. Obviously, the Hershey Bears, as Zach predicted, not making it out of the first round, or their first round, I should say. So they're making some off-season moves as of now. One of those things has been to sign forward Mason Morelli to an AHL contract for the 22-23 season. A strong addition to the club for sure. Played about a season and a half with the Bears, getting 12 goals, 21 assists through about 60 games. I mean, this is something that I'm sure they're glad to have gotten done, and then they'll kind of just keep on trying to make those improvements all over the offseason to get them past the first round to prove our Zack Power wrong.
Yeah, and definitely having some guys coming back next year will be good. He's still pretty young in his career, and he's got a lot of potential.
Without a doubt. And speaking of a guy who has a lot of potential, we've got some call-up news. Now, obviously, we're in that time of season where we know for a fact that the big club matters a little bit more to to these owners than the small clubs, and that is no truer than in the case of Charlie Lindgren, who was recalled from Springfield to St. Louis following the injury to Jordan Binnington this week in the matchup against Colorado. So that could end up being a damper on the T-Birds for sure, but they didn't show that in game one. By the time we release this episode, we'll have had another game under the belt, but they didn't show that that fear too much.
No, and
Yeah.
you know, I watched the St. Louis Blues game against Colorado, and you know, by the time we're talking game 4 here, so yeah, I looked at that, and Husso did not play so good. And I thought that we were going to have a little bit of Charlie Lindgren in there. So I was like, oh my God, this is not good. Right. But he's been a rock for this team. And Charlie Lindgren comes in with a lot of experience. He played for a long time in the Montreal franchise before eventually getting shipped off. And so I think that when you kind of look at Charlie Lindgren, you want a veteran goalie experience especially in the playoffs for the Thunderbirds, and they had an excellent showing against Charlotte. I think they even shut him out.
Hofer was net though for that.
Yes. So I mean, this is kind of the one. That's what I'm trying to say here is, you know, he kind of brings that, but clearly they're doing well without him.
Yeah, like again, with Hofer being able to pitch that shutout in game 1 against a very good Charlotte team, I feel the Thunderbirds definitely will miss Lindgren's presence. Absolutely, like somebody as experienced as he is, you want him down during a long playoff run. But on the other hand, they've also shown that they can win without him, and I honestly think that if they just play their game, they should take the series.
And let me reiterate this too. If this is going to be a quick exit like we're kind of seeing in the NHL, he will come back down for whatever remaining games if he does get down there in that case. So we'll all know by Thursday afternoon what's kind of going to be the plan with not only Lindgren but the Blues and Springfield.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, this is kind of just out of left field and not related to the Lindgren conversation. Do we know if St. Louis sent down Scott Perunovich to be eligible to be moved down at any point? No? Like at the deadline to send players down, like the paper moves. Could we see?
No, I don't think they sent him down. And you know what? Perunovich, I was actually amazed at how well he's been playing. They had him out in the final few minutes of that St. Louis game their Monday night. He was good, and he's holding the line too against a solid Colorado team. He's the real deal. Like, this is the guy that we've been hyping up all season long. I mean, don't quote me on this, but I don't think he's coming down. I don't think he's eligible to come down. But you know, stranger things have happened, and I think that the Blues have got themselves a very, very good defenseman. And I would even argue, because I like to, that he will be the top defenseman in the league at some point.
It's a bold claim. That is a bold claim, but I like it.
In a league,
you know who he reminds me of? PK Subban.
Sure.
Subban,
but in a league with Cale Makar.
Really well. He played really well for Hamilton, and he scored a good couple of goals in Hamilton too when he was there, and he's playing really good as well.
I like it. I like the bold claims. You can never listen to this show and think that we are not willing to go there. Like, we are always relatively willing to push the envelope, and I always appreciate that from you. And speaking of things that are pushing the envelope, we talked about it. I'm losing track of my days at this point. I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, but news out of the North, folks. So obviously, as we talked about last week, Stockton on the verge of relocation. It was rumored at the time, and finally we do have that confirmation that Stockton will be relocated to Calgary So this is again, the Heat played there in 2020, 2021 because of COVID and because of the strange protocols. But they've been in Stockton for 6 years. And before then, Stockton hosted an ECHL squad. Of course, attendance not always the most, lovely sight for folks, and specifically for ownership. Obviously, Stockton having the worst attendance record, averaging near 1,700 fans this season. But now we've got this final word. Zach, I know you've been doing a lot of work on this story. Talk to us a little bit about it, and just what are some of our initial thoughts on the panel?
So let's get this. First off, Stockton has been a great hockey town. They the writing has been on the wall for quite some time. Stockton, 17 years between the ECHL and the AHL. It's tough to kind of see him go. Maybe it's the Calgary curse, right? Calgary hasn't done well last going off in a lot of their places. They've done a lot of shifting around. 1,700 fans, but let's not forget the early years of when the AHL was there. They were packing the barn, and I think that they were getting like 5,000 fans a game in the early going, which was pretty well their full arena. I do believe. Don't quote me on that either. So first off, they were a really great franchise, and they did some really great things. I also think back to February when Patrick Williams actually did an article speaking with Scott Howson, and he actually did say, "Oh, I don't see any changes coming up." So for a lot of people, the writing could have been on the wall, but he said that there was no changes that he was expecting to see besides Coachella for next season. So there's that aspect. Now we got to look at the Pacific Division, and you're starting to see now more and more teams are creeping up towards the north, and so that's going to be a thing coming up now. Is we already have a lot of Canadian teams up here, so we're not going to see a Canadian division, obviously, but the other side of it now is where are they going to play? And I know Michael's definitely wants to chime in on this, and I know he's going to say this too, but they have the WHL, the NL and lacrosse, and the NHL, Michael.
Have one facility for three like almost full-time leagues. Sure, one's not professional, being major junior, but that still commands a lot of ice time. And then you have to factor in the conversions between ice hockey and lacrosse, which isn't as easy as it sounds. It's not just layering some carpet over the ice. There's a lot that goes on when you're changing from an ice rink to a lacrosse box. You have to wonder about whether or not the Saddle Dome is actually that viable, which is it's absurd to phrase it like that. But for the well-being of this team, they're going to get like the scraps of whatever times that they can have at the Saddle Dome.
And I will say this: there was a meeting on Wednesday afternoon. They're talking about the Saddle Dome. A part of me likes to think that this was a little bit of leverage, but the other side of it too is the way I kind of look at this. The NLL only plays very, very select games on the weekdays. Like I would, they played 10 games in the regular season of their games, and they played 10 at the Saddle Dome. The Calgary Hitmen played 30, 40 odd. The Flames played 41, I think, or something like that. And I know this year they've actually had to play at a small 1,200 seat arena because of COVID. Because the Roughnecks had COVID and the Flames had COVID, the WHL actually had to play in this smaller arena. So now I'm looking at it, and the WHL, if you look at their schedule too, there's not many games that they play on weekdays. It's a lot like the AHL in that sense. They have the team kind of bus in, and then they'll play 2 or 3 games. And I'm telling you, they could go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no problem. If they got the arena time, they'll do it. They'll have no problem doing it. So that's kind of my problem with it too. And the other side of it too is how can you brand your team inside an arena where there's already 4 major teams in there, right? You can't have your logo at center ice. You can't really have your own team store or anything like that. And their options that they have we kind of talked about it a little bit off air. They really don't have anything. They have the Winsport Arena, which is way out in Olympic Park. It's a half hour outside of town-ish kind of thing, and there's no Jumbotron. And that would also have to, if they played there, they would also have to share it with a basketball team in Winsport. And I know that the Winsport is also slated to host some curling events too, and Hockey Canada events. So they don't have the arena to put them. It's going to be tough.
So I highly doubt anybody would be listening to this who would be able to make this decision. What I would like to see is an agreement between the Heat organization, the Calgary Flames organization, and the University of Calgary. I think that there could be something. So right now, the Calgary Dinos of U Sports of Canada West, they play out of Father Bauer Arena, which there's another Father Bauer in Vancouver, but they play out of Father Bauer Arena in Calgary. That seats, I think, just under 2,000 people. I feel that if they can come to some sort of agreement, get like some sort of renovation done on the place, expand seating or whatever, or even just a new facility. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential that can be explored between between the Calgary Dinos and let's call them the Calgary Heat. We've seen more and more Canadian youth sports players make the jump from university hockey up in Canada to the AHL. There is a lot of potential that can be unlocked with some sort of disagreement. They could practice together. If they practice together, they share a facility. It could lead to a lot of development, not only for youth sports up in Canada, but as well as the AHL. They just unlock an entirely new talent pipeline up here.
Yeah, I think the thing that at least you have going for you is 3 out of the 4 squads that will make Scotiabank their home, or the Saddledome their home, I should say, are owned by the same folks, right? Like the same ownership. So you have to wonder on what level there will be sacrifices made amongst the Flames are not going to be amongst the group that gets anything like. There will be no compromise, I don't think, there. But when you talk about the WHL, you talk about the AHL. You wonder if there will be some sort of an agreement there in the ownership group. But I mean, at the end of the day, like it's just it's almost too many cooks in the kitchen there. Like it almost feels like it's going to be difficult to make anything feasible work. I don't know that it solves any of your problems. I know we've talked off air too. I mean, Utica's got the smallest barn in the AHL right now of about 3,700 folks being able to fill in for a game there. And, we're talking about some places here that maybe even make that 1,700 that they were getting in Stockton hard to achieve.
And that's what I often wonder about is how is attendance going to work? Are you watering down the market? The junior hockey market in Calgary is actually really good. And on a normal day, they would get anywhere between 4,000, and there was games where they had 12,000 people. Right. And they actually do really well for a junior hockey team. So I'm wondering now I don't want to say is it the right fit, but it doesn't have the population for yet another market. Right. We look at, say, Toronto. Toronto does have a lot there, but they have the population to back it up. Even Abbotsford and Vancouver, I kind of consider them one and the same, really. They're so close that they can have junior hockey and they can have that because they have the population, but does Calgary have it?
Don't forget that the Giants also had to move. Originally, they were playing out of Pacific Coliseum. They had to move further into the valley. Now they're playing at the Langley Event Center, and that's when their attendance really started to pick up because they were able to market to an underserviced area almost. And that's the concern. Again, if Vancouver Giants playing in Pacific Coliseum, they were so close to where the Canucks play. And that ended up leading to lackluster attendance, especially towards the end of their time there. So it's not just a Calgary thing. You can probably see it in Vancouver. You could probably see it in Toronto if the teams were like that close in proximity. Just they have to find a way to make it work, or else we'll be looking at another relocation discussion.
Makes you wonder if this is going to revitalize any of the conversations that were happening over the last year in terms of a new facility for the Flames and for the ownership group going in and building a new facility. I mean, it makes you think, now that you've got another franchise located in the space, is the cost going, is the return on investment going to increase for this Calgary ownership group? I mean, you can make the argument that it could, but I mean, we'll see.
And that's kind of one of the big things that I first crossed my mind is this because they've been a long time trying to get a replacement for the saddle loom. It's nearly 40 years old, right? And now on my unofficial count on their website, they have 16 events between the day that we record this podcast and December. So that's, and that's 16 plus. So I often wonder too and then you obviously Calgary gets first pick, right? So that's the other side of it too, is there's going to be a lot of weekend games because Calgary wants to get that weekend door, right? They want to get that Hockey Night in Canada door. And the NLL wants that Friday night. They got the deal now with TSN and Sportsnet where they're now playing games on Friday nights on television, right? So they're going to want that door as well. So that's another side that I kind of look at is, what are they going to play? Like, you look at the AHL schedule through the year, and there's times where you're like, oh, wow, I haven't seen a Tuesday game in months, right? And if it wasn't for a lot of these COVID reschedules. And so this is, again, the kind of thing, the ice time was just so locked in when they had one less team that they actually had to play in a smaller arena. The WHL did. They got bumped. And now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking Winsport is their only other option. And Winsport is all the time hosting Hockey Canada events. And they host curling there all the time. Then they have their regular stuff. And they have a basketball team there. And there's no video scoreboard. So who wants to drive a half hour outside of town, watch an AHL game in a small 3,000 seat arena with no scoreboard or nothing there?
Yeah, I can't say that I disagree with you. It makes you wonder. We talk a little bit. I mean, we've talked on this show about some of our gripes with AHL scheduling and things of that nature. And I'm not necessarily saying that the best way to draw attendance or to draw interest in the newly relocated Heat organization is by throwing some games on a Tuesday or a Thursday. But I think all of us, at least on this show, are not anti the AHL playing more weekday games. We'd like to see a more spread out schedule, but to what cost? I mean, what is the detriment to a franchise that's looking to relocate? I mean, do a lot of are you going to lose interest in that first few seasons because of this oversaturation? I mean, it's possible, right? Like, it's maybe naive to assume that it wouldn't happen that way.
And even on the slightest of chances that they get one weekend a month, like they rotate between the four of them, like how does that affect, like, at what point too, right? Like, it'll be so Tetrised in, and I would like to know who gets first pick in the scheduling, right? So obviously Calgary would get the first, the Flames. I say Calgary like there's not 4 Calgary teams there. It would obviously be the Flames, but then who gets second pick, right? And then say the Calgary Heat or the Calgary AHL team get the last pick. You're looking at how many weekends a year, right? And then concerts too. You can't have a Justin Bieber concert on a Saturday because the Flames, the Hitmen, the AHL squad, and the Roughnecks all want to get in there on a Saturday. Like, you can't.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Do you think on that kind of topic of conversation, in some ways, are they going to be the Calgary Heat? Are they going to be the Alberta? Like, what do we think happens?
You see, everyone seems to be kind of going for the Calgary Heat. I'd love to see Alberta Heat. I think that'd be, Alberta beef. But I looking at it the way that it's kind of been with the Flames, even going all the way back to the 90s, they've been the Heat or something close to that, right? I can't see them dropping the name real quick, but like, who knows?
Look, maybe stick them in like Red Deer or Lethbridge with that name. That might actually work a lot better than trying to force them into Calgary.
They're committed to Calgary. They said Calgary. They got to do Calgary, right? And Red Deer's what, an hour and a half away, 2 hours.
Yeah,
away?
it's 1.5.
I did see a
right.
couple good jersey designs, though. I will say this while I get way off topic, and it was like the Stockton, but instead of the S, it was a maple leaf. And I thought that was real, and it had like the Canadian flag in the back instead of the Heat. So I thought that was a pretty cool design I seen on the Twitter box. So I'd like to kind of, you can incorporate that a little bit.
I'm down for it. I'm always down for a jersey concept. I'm A+. We can always have a jersey episode. I'm always down.
But the other side of it too, and this is something we haven't talked about yet, is I'm trying to think back to how many teams now don't have an AHL squad within their fingertips. There's not many left. Like I know like Seattle right now doesn't, and St. Louis is still on the ropes, but like you're running out of teams that actually aren't even relatively close, like within like an hour's 2 hours drive.
I mean, it's still Edmonton, Bakersfield, but I think that's the only one that leaps into mind, and they might also be on the move.
Yeah, I mean, Chicago, Carolina is not that's a flight. I mean, that's definitely a flight. That's not a drive. I mean, I think it kind of fits in the same conversation as St. Louis and Springfield. But yeah, I mean, you don't see it as much anymore. And obviously, I don't think. I mean, with the exception to the Arizona Coyotes, I don't think we're on the verge of seeing an NHL team potentially shift at all. So you've got to wonder, are any of these AHL markets at risk? Chicago's not. Like Chicago is going to be there. I think we talked about that on our previous show, right? Like you'll never have anything perfect here because the Wolves aren't going anywhere. And you don't have two NHL teams based in Chicago. It'd be more likely that Rockford moved before that happened. And so it's just a fascinating circumstance. And speaking of movement too, the other piece of this that we haven't really talked about is how does this, or does this at all, affect division alignment?
Well, and that's the one thing Scott Howison said, he's going to have a 10-team division, right? And I start to think about it now, and you think about how spread out they are. So they have teams in Alberta, BC, Arizona, Colorado, and California.
Nevada too.
And Nevada. I knew I was forgetting one. Thank you. So, at what point do you split them, right? Like, are we getting the opportunity now that we could have like Colorado, Abbotsford, and like this Calgary team all come together with a couple up like Coachella Valley? I don't know. Like, at what point, right? Like, you don't want to become the Central Division where it's just so spread out, right?
Yeah,
it's definitely a tough conversation to have.
Geographically, to begin with, the West has always been just a nightmare in travel-wise with how spread out all the cities are.
But see, even there were so many California teams, right? And who knows, right? I look at San Jose too, and the Barracuda are not perfect. And for some reason, people do not want to go to the SAP Center to watch Barracuda games. They don't. And they're getting like 1,800 fans, and they're just waiting for this new arena to be built. But like, that's the other side of it I look at too. Who's next?
Yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, like, as you look at the list of franchises right now and you look at the way that I mean, really the only shift would be, I mean, there's no winning. There's no winning here. I mean, I guess you could move Grand Rapids to the north, and I guess you could move Colorado to the central. But at that point, I mean, you've got a 9-team division, and I don't know that really is worth the hassle.
All the same, it is complete chaos, and I know it would never happen. And dear God, I don't want to see it happen. But I've seen someone on Twitter suggest an all-Canadian division again.
Yeah.
Like they had in the COVID bubble. And I know that there's no way Toronto was happy about that nice Air Canada flight every time that they want to play Stockton or Calgary kind of thing.
Now imagine that 4-hour flight to Vancouver and then honestly.
Yeah, certainly not ideal. Fun and chaotic. I do agree with the fun and the chaos of it all. It's a good time, but probably not something we're going to see anytime soon unless we find ourselves in another pandemic situation, which I can only hope and pray that does not occur.
Monkeypox.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Buckle up, everyone. But yeah, it'll be fun to see how this all evolves. Of course, like Zach said from the jump, it is unfortunate anytime you see a team leave a market. And so obviously, like we hope that Stockton's not hockeyless for too long, and we hope that there's a little bit of fun. I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the poking back and forth between the Barracuda and the Heat social media teams over the weekend. My gosh.
Yeah. So for anybody who didn't see it, so the Barracuda, and they are pretty close proximity. For anybody who's not California knowledgeable like I am, I had to do some Googling. They are actually relatively pretty close to each other. Like there's enough that you might be able to make the drive out if you're a devoted AHL guy. So they had a fan application posted, and here you go, Stockton. Come on, fans, come on over. And then Stockton replied with a picture of a tweet from the Barracuda that said, "Oh, how did we get here?" And there was a picture of them in last place at the standings. So they kind of got into a little bit of beef on Twitter, as they would, because the Barracuda admins are my favorite in the AHL. I love seeing some of their content, but definitely a little bit of animosity there. But unfortunately, Stockton did not order the rankings. They instead ranked it by points, but they should have done it by attendance because they would see what's happening in their own barn.
Oof. Yeah, without a doubt. Do you hope that Stockton finds a way to win the Calder Cup this year, though? Like, do you hope, like, in like your storyline of storylines?
This is the other side of it too. Is they announced this 8 hours before a crucial game against Colorado, right?
Yeah.
This series, the Colorado Stockton series, has been a heater. No pun intended. It's been a heater of a series, right? Like Colorado's such a skilled team, and then they say, "Oh, well, come on! I hope you come out to the game tonight." What? Like, yeah, and I look back to St. John's. The moment that they found out that they were losing a team, or they had whiff of, people didn't show up to games. Sure, they showed up to the last couple to say, "Oh, this is the last time we'll ever get to go see an AHL game," but they didn't want to go because they knew that they were leaving, and that was what killed St. John's. That's another story, another podcast. But when you hear that sort of stuff, it's a punch in the gut, right? And to do that 8 hours before a huge playoff game, of course you're only going to get 1,800 fans in the building.
Yeah, do you not think that's the kind of thing that could have waited until after the playoffs?
I get that you want to say goodbye, right?
Yeah.
I get that, but it's you do this now in the middle of a playoff run, and I know that the players seen this coming. They knew this long before, right? And Patrick Williams, I think he mentioned it, that the writing was on the wall for the longest time. So when I kind of look at that, I'm thinking it's too bad. It really is too bad that now is the time. They couldn't have a proper send off in the regular season and said, let's keep going in the playoffs and.
Yeah.
But now you'll go and you may never get to say goodbye. That is the hardest part about losing a franchise in the playoffs, is you hope that they come back with a win, but if they don't, that's it.
Yeah. And obviously you'll want to keep it locked on fieldpasshockey.com, and you'll want to follow all of our writers on social media that are going to have their hands in this, because it's obviously going to be quite the story moving forward. And you'll find all that info on our website. But we always have an oof of the week, and I think that basically our last segment probably gives you the oof that you need for the week. Just obviously a hard situation that we don't need to spend too much more time on, but a big time oof for the Heat fan across the world. But we'll move on. Speaking of Heat, Speaking of things that have a little flame icon, y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about that little red square on your phone that you go to when you're sad and lonely. Today you're gonna come see us three because you're sad and lonely, because we've got your hot takes, your swipe right, swipe left, our favorite time of every episode, where we're gonna give you our hot takes. We've got a swipe right if we agree, swipe left if we're not into it. And we've all got our super swipes. It's been a minute, I feel like, since any of us have used our super swipes. I feel like we're like, are we all holding on to them for like some sort of a special occasion? Like, what's the deal?
I haven't had the opportunity. I haven't been opening the app, and I've been ghosting. We've been ghosting potential matches because there's a couple of weeks where we just didn't have time to open up. We're so busy with everything going on. So we all have one left.
This is true. And this will be the last one for the month of May. So if you want to use it, you all have one. We all have one, and that'll be great. We're going to go reverse alphabetical because I feel like I've been hearing myself talk too much. And so that means we've got to throw it to none other than Zach, who has always the best hot takes, and specifically more so the segues into the hot take. So let's see what you bring home for us tonight.
Kind of talked about it a little bit before with the last divisions and Calgary and all that sort of stuff. And, Edmonton is now the last Canadian team that doesn't have their franchise less than 2 hours away. Belleville is now the furthest that they'll go. So that in mind, Bakersfield has had a really, really good season. And, the fan base in Bakersfield is actually really, really devoted. I believe that they're a strong fan base enough that they should be able to keep their franchise. And that saying put, I say that Bakersfield is going to stay put with Edmonton there, and I can't see Edmonton coming up and having another AHL team.
That's what bred on that. I mean, I don't see Bakersfield has a pretty consistent fan base. I mean, they've been performing adequately well. They haven't had like a high swing of success that like really draws people in either. So you can say that it's pretty consistent. I mean, honestly, they haven't had a reason for them to move. But then again, Stockton had its best season in a while, and then they're moving. But I mean, hey, I'm going to swipe right. I think Bakersfield's going to stay put.
I don't think that NHL squads are in the business of just moving their affiliate closer for the sake of moving them closer. I think that you have to have a pretty significant barrier. And what makes me nervous is you're talking geographically about two situations that are similar, right? Like, you're not talking about a huge difference in distance between, Stockton and Calgary and Edmonton and Bakersfield. Bakersfield, I think, probably has a little bit more of a solid foundation to rest its head on in terms of the success in the fan base. Michael, like you were saying, they averaged just a shade under 4,000 in attendance this season. Obviously, it's a weird season too. I'm not 100% sure what California's restrictions were COVID-wise at the start of the season, and maybe how that might have affected overall attendance for Bakersfield. But they're about 50% capacity in their home arena. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna swipe right. I just don't think that teams are going to be in the business of just moving franchises for the sake of moving franchises. You got to give a team a real reason, and I think Stockton, unfortunately, gave that Calgary ownership group enough of a reason. And I don't know. I mean, Bakersfield's got something going for it in the sense that it's not like it's a little bit removed, right, from when we talk about like San Diego and all that kind of deal. So I mean, I think that it works out pretty well for Bakersfield. Look at you go, 2 right swipes.
And that's the way I kind of look at it, right? There's all this talks of, when is Bakersfield going to make the move? Well, this was a long mold. Like, Toronto moved their affiliate in like 2005. Montreal moved theirs in like 16, 17. Ottawa moved theirs around that time too. Like, this was a slow burn kind of thing. Everybody didn't move their affiliates up to Canada for no reason. There was plenty of reason for them to leave St. John's twice, and them for leave Binghamton as well.
All right, I think it's my turn for my searing hot take, fresh off of the grill. And I'm really glad Andrew is not here for this. I think Milwaukee's going to win a game.
No
That's
way.
my hot take.
You think that? All right. This is the disclaimer. Is that this episode will come out after Game 3 has happened. So like we either know this is true or we don't.
Yep.
As we record, we don't know, obviously, but no. No, you can't have told me like that you've like I mean like it's just no way, right? I mean like it's actually been disrespectful. Like the way that Chicago has handled the Admirals to this point has been absolutely distasteful. I think that there's a lot I think there's a lot of people who are going to have to answer to the atrocities that are this series at this point. It's just so bad. It's so bad. I can we super swipe left? Like I don't know. Like Michael, this might be the most. I can't see it.
If it was close with like if it wasn't close in the first series with Manitoba, like they swept Manitoba, they took them to the cleaners. I would tell you, yeah, sure, maybe this might be their top. No way. I'm sorry, and no disrespect, but this is like one of those like the quick swipes. Like you didn't even get past the first. Like I didn't even need to see your bio. I seen the first picture and I said, "That's enough for me." I'm sorry, buddy. I really am.
Not even one game. I can't even sell you guys on one game.
As we record this, 14-4. -10 goal differential in 2 games. I just can't see it, my guy. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. But I admire you. Like this was a class act in hot takery. Like this is like the most hot take of hot takes. And I respect you for that. You can't say that you didn't bring your A game.
I tried.
All right, now I'm going to go a little bit more philosophical, as I often do, because I never like to make things easy. My profiles are always pretty complicated. I'll lure you in with a good picture or two, but then you'll be confused by a third one, and that's my trademark. So obviously right now, the current playoff format, it increases the possibility of call-ups being an issue for AHL teams that are in the playoffs. We're pretty used to seeing – I mean, we have some weird examples this year. We're talking like Calgary and Stockton both being pretty good, and both are going to make their way through the playoffs. So that's a weird scenario. But when we open up the field, we've got more of a chance at there being some of these call-ups through the NHL playoffs. And so my theory, let's stagger the playoff starts a little bit more to give us at least one round potentially in the NHL to weed out at least 8 teams to maybe see if we can get these AHL squads some consistent rosters to the playoffs. Because God forbid, like a Charlie Lindgren, call up be the reason the T-Birds don't find success in the AHL playoffs, but it's not impossible, right? Like we could very realistically see that happen this season. So I'm advocating, I think it'd be a good idea, bump the start, minimize the number of call-ups that you have, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, and I'm going to swipe right, and as soon as we start talking, I'm going to ask you, can we start all the rounds on time too? Please. That will be my first question that I will ask you.
The answer will be yes. That I will appease you in that ask.
Yeah. So I say that, but the other side of it too is that would also give the NHL a good opportunity to kind of see some of their stars. That would kind of push. I would like, and with that, it'd be nice to kind of push the season back forward 2 weeks, right? So start 2 weeks after the NHL, so that way, if you get a guy in opening night and you say, "God, you're terrible," and then they play 3 other games and you say, "God, you're terrible," just send them right down, right? Like, and that would again that would kind of change the dynamic, but I'd be okay with that, right? Let's do it, and again, let's get all those playoffs started on the same track. Like none of this like, oh, well, the West is going to have an odd number of teams. No, it's 8 and 8, right? Let's get that too.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree. I'll swipe right on this as well. I don't know if it was just this season, but the NHL suddenly went from starting at the start of October to like mid-October. And I think that it might be just because of the pandemic as well. I don't remember at this point. Time is a flat circle. It's to Zach's point, yeah, like you want to know, like you some players, great training camp, they come play an NHL game and you're like, wow, they can't keep up at all. Let's send them down. And especially with prospects, you don't want the prospects to be riding the pine or toiling away on the fourth line, getting checking minutes. Just send them down to the AHL, and hopefully to a squad that has an actual developmental structure to it. I think staggering the playoffs would be great as well, because you can put some of those young players down so they could get meaningful minutes in playoff competition, something that they might not necessarily get at the NHL in their first or second seasons. You look at Jacob Pelletier, I mean, like he's been top to bottom one of the best players for the Stockton Heat. Would he have gotten that role with the Calgary Flames? Absolutely not. But you can see him really lead a team deep into May, June, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come. And I think that experience would be tremendous, and especially if a team gets knocked out early, it's like, hey, you want to head down to the AHL, get some more games? And it's like, I think most players would probably want to do that and like get some W's as well.
And further to that point too, I mean, we talked about Charlie Lindgren, but Dustin Wolf has been so good this playoffs. Like, you would hate to see Markstrom go down because Evander Kane was like, okay, I'll be Evander Kane for a minute, and then they end up with no goaltender, right? Like, he has been the best goalie all year, and it gets down to this point where Markstrom has to miss a game or two, and you're screwed.
Yeah, I was really hoping, Michael, that when you were giving your reasoning for your right swipe, that you weren't going to reference players like Jack Quidd getting a lot of really meaningful time in the playoffs, because
I mean, he's getting meaningful minutes. It's a question of him actually doing anything with those minutes.
Man, yeah, no kidding. I guess, I mean, obviously we're not going to dive too deep into the nitty-gritty of the series, but maybe we could just touch a little bit on each of these series and where they stand right now. Obviously, as we record, that might end up meaning different things, by the time the episode is released. We'll take that into account in what we're saying out here. But Chicago is going to sweep Milwaukee. That's going to happen. Like, by the time you listen to this episode on Thursday, it's going to be done. That game's on Wednesday.
Just you watch. Just you watch. I'm gonna laugh my head off if they actually manage to hang on.
I've just never felt more confident in myself in the show than I do right now. Like, I've never felt more confident. And I'm going to eat this. This is going to be a freezing cold take by the time we're done. But, like, I'm feeling really confident in that. Obviously, Chicago, man, like, breaking news, they can score. Like, I don't know if anybody's, like, shocked to hear that. I mean.
Wow, a team that can score in the playoffs?
I know. Wait, hold on. Did everybody – please tell me that everybody saw
Can we talk about how Florida was in a similar situation as to Chicago? I mean, yes, it's NHL versus AHL, but
that's true. But can we talk about how did everybody see the Stefan Nason text message tweet?
Oh my god!
Wait! Enlighten me and the rest of the viewers as well.
Oh God, Michael, who texted him about the game?
I don't remember, but his
response was, "I'm feeling like 3 tonight," or something like that, and he ended up putting up a.
Oh, I seen that.
Isn't that wild? Can I just tell you how disappointed I am that Stefan Nason has not found his way onto the Holy Grail?
Bring it up with Andrew.
I think Andrew can probably make that happen.
I'm also feeling that, but I mean, you gotta feel bad for the Milwaukee squad at this point. I mean, Alex Lyon, I mean, like, he's returned from injury in a big way. I mean, he's looked really good in all 5 at this point of Chicago's games. I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Any other takes on this series so far? Except for Michael. Actually, Zach, do you have any other takes on this series?
To me, it's typical Chicago, right? It's nothing that I wouldn't expect from them, right? It's what I've seen from them is exactly what I've seen all year. And I don't want to say I seen it coming, but boy, they're just so good. I think about who they have on the other side. It's going to be a good series.
It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Kind of speaking on the other side of that, actually, Michael, let me actually give you space to give anything that you have on the series. Let me not be the worst.
Oh, well, okay.
Oh, no.
Wait. Can I ask one question? My job is to ask the tough questions. Why do you think that Milwaukee is going to win?
Because of
Sell me.
Okay. So this is completely just nonsense superstition. But I just feel like the Wolves are going to lose focus for whatever reason. For some reason, something goes wrong. And this is the thing, like, it's been ingrained to me from watching Colorado Avalanche. They're not going to sweep an opponent. They're just going to stumble in one game for whatever reason, and they're just going to drop. They're going to lose it. They're going to outplay their opponents, but like 2 fluky goals, and all of a sudden, that's a game. There's no reason besides the fact that I just want pure chaos as well.
It's fair.
I can respect that. And talking about pure chaos, this series between Stockton and Colorado is a good one. I think this is one of the series that you look at, and if you told me it went 5 before it was all said and done, I would believe you. I just think that this series is a lot of fun. Obviously, I mean, as we're recording the show right now, game 2 underway, but
16,
Stockton
30 in the first.
Yeah, Stockton successful in game 1. 5-0 shutout. Dustin Wolf looking really, really good. This is a Colorado team that has scored a lot in these playoffs, and so I definitely found myself a little bit surprised at the shutout. That Dustin Wolf threw out there, but we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Stockton, I tell you what, 1 for 6 on the power play, so that Colorado penalty kill is still doing well, as we mentioned last episode.
If Stockton makes it out of this, someone has to buy Dustin Wolf a steak dinner or something, because boy, has he been the backbone of that first game, right? Colorado we're talking about a team that took out the Ontario Reign and didn't think twice about it. Like, did not even question it, right? I said it in the last episode of the podcast. You can watch that. We kind of teed it up there. Dustin Wolf will be the guy who saves them. He's the knight in shining armor, and trust me, when an eagle swoops down to try to take a wolf, the wolf always wins. And this is what we're going to see in this playoff series. It's all Wolf.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's going to be a lot of fun to keep watching that one, and I don't envy whoever wins this series. I got to be honest. I don't envy them, but they're obviously hoping to get their chance at Chicago.
Both teams deserve, and don't get me wrong, Colorado's a team that deserves the win. They fought to be in this position, and it would be a stab in the guts if they lost to Wolf, right? Like, they came all this way just to be stopped by a hot goaltender, right? He's a good goaltender, but and then you got to think about Stockton, the year that they've had. If they lose, if Wolf isn't their knight in shining armor, right? You had a great season and you had a great goaltender through the first game, but here we are.
Now, I don't know if I'm reading this right, and this might just be the AHL app, but Stockton obviously finished first in the division. What's going on with Colorado getting 3 home games in this series? Is that an AHL app miscue, or is that real life?
No. So teams that the higher seed gets the pick how many home games they want.
Can I ask? Like, is this?
And this is like, again, 90% sure here, because again, in the regular season, you get to pick what games you want. You, like, for the most part, you even get to pick, like, if you want to go on a road trip. That's why the Marlies can go down and twack around in Texas for a month, because they can pick their schedule in that sense. So I believe that the higher seed gets to pick if they want home ice advantage.
So what I'm hearing is that attendance has been so bad in Stockton that they decided that That's a lot of. I'm making a lot of just being a smart aleck and making a lot of assertions there. I
mean, I'm not here denying you because they didn't have the attendance against Bakersfield. They had 1,800 people show up to the last game in the Bakersfield series. 1,800 people in the playoff series. And that was, I believe that was before they announced that they were, or the rumors came out that they were leaving.
Man, just an odd flex with Stockton on that. Michael, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have any animal metaphors, but I'm really curious to how Colorado will respond. Losing 5-0 is very unlike them. Knowing this Eagles team, they can score, and I don't want to I don't want to say they're at the level of Chicago because nobody is, but they're up there, and I just feel like if they don't get a result tonight, I think this could actually end up being a sweep just because they've just fallen flat on their faces.
Sure.
It's going to be a pretty big indicator of how the momentum will swing in this series. And honestly, I'm looking for, if I'm Colorado, I need a response after losing 5-0. I mean, that's just something that you don't like seeing happen. You don't want to lose by 5. You don't want to get shut out. It's especially at home. So, I mean, like we don't want any of that. We don't want any of that if I'm Colorado. But I mean,
so hey, as per the AHL rulebook, home ice advantage in all series will be granted to the team with the higher points percentage. So Stockton chose not to have the extra games. That is per the AHL rulebook.
There you have it.
That is weird.
I've never heard of that in my life. That's some reverse Harold Ballard stuff right there, man. Like,
do you think, I mean, like, because it's not like we're in a format where we have to be 2-3 or 3-2, right? I mean, we could go 2-2-1. Like, do we think that it's simply because I don't know, man? That's just the weirdest thing.
Is it the pressure though? Like, you hear all this stuff, and I've never been one to believe it, right? But you hear the stuff of players actually doing better on the road because they get the bond and they're not going home and whatever. They're more focused. But I don't know. And I've spoken to a lot of junior prospects and whatever who said quite the opposite. So I don't know, right? Do these AHL guys figure that, hey, if we go on into Colorado, we'll be together on a bus for hours and we'll hang out in a hotel together and it'll be all fine and dandy. We're focused.
I guess. But speaking of we talked a little bit about a series that's out of hand in Chicago and Milwaukee, but another one that hurts my soul to talk about that might be a little bit out of hand and might have already been wrapped up by the time this episode comes out is the Laval Rochester series. Now, not anything that I think any of us are super shocked by. I mean, me personally, I think I made the assertion that Laval was going to make their way to the Calder Cup final, but man, just like a completely shut down Amherst squad in game one, losing 6-1, not being able to find the back of the net, which is something that, we've talked about this whole playoff, right? Is like some of their really, really great goal scorers and point getters in, JJ Peterka and Peyton Krebs have shown up. Archie Ruotsalainen has been incredible for them in their first two series. Jack Quinn has gone missing, and the fear is going into this series, if you have players cool off, like Archie Ruotsalainen, like JJ Peterka, it could be a short series. And it seems like that's kind of where we found ourselves with the Amherst and the Rocket. Of course, anything is possible. This one's not over yet, but I'm not sure that the Amherst are going to be able to rattle off 3 here and save themselves and get themselves into the Eastern Conference Final.
I think the biggest thing that stops me from believing that this team can, aside from players going cold, the thing that stops me from believing that the Americans can come back in the series is their inexperience. I feel that this is one of those moments where it takes a team that knows how to get itself out of a 2-0 hole, who knows what it's like with their backs against the wall. It's not discounting the Americans. They have plenty of skilled players, and they're all extremely talented. It's just that with such a young squad, there is that lack of I want to say like game experience in this situation where, oh my goodness, we could go home. Like, do you run from it or do you stand up? And right now, honestly, because of their inexperience, I think we could be looking at a sweep by the time this comes out.
And all I'll say is I said it in my, teeing up the series, and I'll say it again. If Rochester wants to win, it has to come from some of their best players. Younger or not, they have a pretty young team. Let's give them that. But you have to actually do something. You have to score at least one goal. Like, come on. Who's kidding who here? So for me, it's got to come from within, and your star players. What happens if McDavid doesn't score goals for Edmonton? What happens? Right?
Evander Kane blossoms into the second coming of Jesus.
Yeah, Milan Lucic is going to start scoring goals now. You're going to tell me next. So this is what we're kind of seeing is their best players have to score, and we're not seeing that, and that's the result.
All of that could be said, and Jack Quinn could go out and put up a hat trick by the time this episode even comes out, and it could be a 2-1 series. Like anything is possible. That game goes back to, or that series goes back to Rochester. Another series that we talk about, we talked about a little earlier in the show, in the implications of the Charlie Lindgren call-up is between Springfield and Charlotte, still to this day, the defending Calder Cup champions. Man, the T-Birds looked good. They looked really good in that first game. Game 2 will have been played by the time this episode comes out, so we're either going to be looking at a 2-0 Springfield lead or a 1-1 tie as they go back, I think, at that point to the Bojangles Coliseum for that game on Saturday. I'm actually going to be in Charlotte on Saturday, and I cannot make my way to the Mecca that is Bojangles Coliseum, and I'm very disappointed in it. But nevertheless, Charlotte, they're capable of finding their stride. They're capable of shaking off that game 1 defeat. But wow, what a performance by Springfield.
What else is there to say? I mean, they took one of the best teams in their division and just dummied them, from top to bottom. But hey, the checkers are the checkers. They're still, obviously, the pandemic is still a thing, but this is an organization. It's a team that knows how to win. It's a team that's fueled by 2 teams' prospects. I still think the series could go either way. 6-0 is just the first game, and it all depends on what happens. Obviously, the AHL schedule is doing us no favors in terms of this, but you got to see what happens in Game 2, and only after Game 2 will I be comfortable saying how the series is going to turn out.
And give full credit to Springfield for just absolutely turning on the taps, right? And if you're at Springfield, you have to look at it this way. St. Louis isn't looking so hot up there right now. And so when they're eliminated, the first person that they're going to send down is Lindgren. So you'll have some more goaltending security in that sense, right? Not saying that he hasn't been playing good, right? But I think that this has been a good series so far. And let's not sleep on Charlotte either, because the amount of times that we joked throughout the run of the season, I mean, we who was it? I think it was Utica had that long series, and I think they actually lost their streak to Charlotte, right? We said, oh, who are they going to lose to, a team like Charlotte? And they did, right? It's best that we not sleep on Charlotte. And by the way, you can listen to Game 3 on the Field Pass Hockey app. We have we'll be covering that Charlotte series on there all the way through. You can turn that on. I turn it on. I cast it to my Google Chrome, the speaker, and perfect. Make dinner with it. It's awesome. The Android Auto, all that good stuff. It's all there.
Hey, listen, we love that. The self promo is good. Y'all got to check it out. It's going to be a good one. My prediction is, as you're listening to this episode, this series is tied up. That's what my crystal ball tells me. My crystal ball might be a little foggy tonight, but I'm going to try to give myself a little bit of credit and say that one's going to be tied up. But obviously, man, I mean, we've got some point scorers in this playoff so far. And oddly enough, I mean, also, like, in fairness, 9 games played, but 3 Rochester Americans find themselves in the top 5 of point getters so far in this Calder Cup playoff. Archie Ruotsalainen, JJ Peterka, and Peyton Krebs are in the top 5 with 12 points for Ruotsalainen in the lead across the league, and then JJ Peterka and Peyton Krebs both with 10 points each. But Sam Anas, as we talked about, obviously Springfield, Austin Zarnik is out of the playoffs, but he had 10 points in 6 games. There's nothing too shabby there. And a good old Andrew Podorowski, we got to include him in this list, right? He's got 9 points, which feels low. Like, I don't know why, but with the points that Chicago's racked up, for some reason, Pod's only having 9 points feels odd to me.
But see, you also have to think about Chicago as well. Is they've been a pretty well-rounded team so far in these playoffs. Like, they haven't really dug deep on this one guy. Like, usually you see in the regular season, like, Podorowski is way out there, right? And we kind of seen stuff like that. But now it's been a pretty well balanced approach. And you also have to think about Podorowski's only played 5 games as well. So he's more than a point per game player. I would beg almost double. So he's been playing up to par for my standards, at least, especially against Milwaukee, who's going to win apparently.
Yeah, without a doubt. And yeah, sorry, I just breezed right by that little bit of shade that you were throwing. But yeah, I mean, like, you look at this list, and I mean, you've got omissions here in the top 10 from Stockton. You've got omissions from Laval. So you've got teams here, Charlotte, that are poised to make a run, that just have been doing it by committee more so, or have been doing it by playing more traditional playoff hockey, not putting up too many points. And so talking through the goal getters, I mean, not a ton of difference in the names here. Archie Ruotsalainen, out of his 12 points, 8 are goals. He's averaging almost a goal per game for the Amerks. You've got AJ Greer, who had himself a really great series against Rochester, had 6 goals. Jason Magna, obviously Colorado struggles to get on the scoreboard against Stockton in the game 1, but again, Colorado scored at will against Ontario and seem to be holding their own pretty well. JJ Peterka, 5 goals. Stefan Nason, also 5 goals. Then we've got a Laval entry here, and that's Danik Martel, who had a really, really solid game 2 for the Rocket. Mark Jankowski with 5, and Zach Doppy with 5 as well.
Some good names on there, and it is pretty reflective of the points too. Up and down that list, it's all those guys who are averaging even a goal per game, like AJ Greer in 5 games, 6 goals, right? Jason Megna, 6 goals, 6 games, right? Yeah. So it's kind of, and even Ruotsalainen, like, he's got 9 games played, 8 goals. So he's been a big production value for them. And, we've seen a lot in the Senators series. I think a lot more, even just the little games that I've seen in that Senators series, because I was covering another series. But what I've seen in that is a talented squad in Rochester. And I don't know. I think that they just ran into a hot Laval, and we kind of see that here. And it's evident by the leaderboard. No doubt. And so obviously the goaltenders continue to goaltend in the way. I mean, Alex Lyon has been great. Dustin Wolf obviously gets not a hat trick. That would be something else to talk about. We would have a lot of content on that if Dustin Wolf found his way to net 3, but a shutout, obviously a shutout in Springfield. So goaltending it's happening. I mean, you look around the league, then you look like Aaron Dell's numbers versus, say, a Dustin Wolf's numbers in these playoffs, and it's vastly different. So goaltending a story as well as it always is. But guys, I mean, that I think pretty much wraps us up on this one. I mean, we've got playoff hockey happening as we speak. As you continue to listen, we will keep it locked here on the Holy Grail, giving you all of the best playoff coverage. Any final thoughts from either of you two on where we're at in this postseason? This has been a great postseason. Let me just say that first. The Western Conference, if it's looking the way it's on pace for now, It's Stockton and Chicago, and this has been the dream series that we've all been waiting for.
Mhm.
Who knows? That could change. All the same, when it comes to Stockton, it's tough to see him go, right? And we'll keep following that. We'll break down what exactly the arena situation is going to look like and all that sort of good stuff. And even when it comes down to jerseys and logos, keep it locked with Field Pass Hockey.
Yeah, if you aren't watching the playoffs, you're missing out. That's all I have to say.
That is like the perfect way, the concise, perfect way to wrap that one up. Couldn't agree more. And like I said, folks, that's going to be it for us this week on the Holy Grail. And if you like us, please subscribe, like, share, rate this podcast, tell your friends all about us. And if you really, really like us, you can follow us individually on our Field Pass Hockey Twitters. You can follow me at FPH Americans.
I'm at FPH Canucks.
Sorry, and I'm at FPH Marley's. Jumping the gun there.
I'm telling you, we're just so eager for you all to follow us for our content.
We also got that new account too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true.
Ooh.
We have a at Holy GrAHL at Holy GrAHL account now.
Hold on. Why didn't we lead with this? Why didn't we lead with
we got all the good content, and you know what's even great? All of us have passwords to it, so like you never know what you're gonna get. Just like when you enter this podcast, you never know what you're gonna get.
I'm hoping that our listeners follow along to our Twitter and can start to guess which one of us is tweeting what tweets.
Oh God.
Like,
wow, who told you so?
I'm telling you. It's gonna be good. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you can follow that. It's just at the Holy Grail. And you know how we spell it by now. But if you don't, it's at the Holy GrAHL. Because why wouldn't it be, right? So going to check us out there at the Holy Grail on Twitter. Be sure to check out all of Field Pass Hockey's other podcasts. We've got a whole lineup full of really great shows. We've got Inside the SPHL with James Hayes, Syracuse Speaks with Alexander Ackerman. Syracuse Speaks is a Syracuse Crunch-centric podcast that focuses on maintaining a balanced perspective in the ever-shifting world of minor league hockey. Monsters Musings with Jay Forster and Dina Weinheimer. At Monsters Musings, they discuss all of the storylines, good and bad, around the Cleveland Monsters, and the Three Periods podcast with Matt Harding. On behalf of all of us here at the Holy Grail, we hope you have an amazing week, and we will see you all next Thursday. Bye.
This has been the Holy GrAHL Podcast. Have a question or topic suggestion? Hit us up on Twitter or drop us an email. For the latest news across the American Hockey League and the rest of minor league hockey, download the Field Pass Hockey app, now available in the Apple and Android app stores.